I would like to share my thoughts on isolation or being isolated. So I've been isolated from the modern world for like a few days already. Not much, but it made me realize some stuff, things that I already knew, but you kind of forget them in the modern lifestyle because they're somehow incompatible. And by isolation I mean I don't have internet, TV, radio. I do have a radio, but I don't listen to that. I don't know what's happening anywhere. And also there are basically 3 people in the whole region that live right now, and the average age is like 80. So these people don't know anything. The only thing we have is electricity and water, which comes from the local supplies. So yeah, I had some thoughts again. We all know what's happening right now in the world, and it's a mess, let's be honest. From the pandemic to some movements to fights for justice, whatever you name it. Some stuff I'm supporting, others don't. Third, about many things I don't care that much, but what you cannot avoid is all of the information that you get every day from internet, people, and so on. And you start to live in that vicious circle where you know about everything and yet you somehow don't know about anything at all, which doesn't really make sense. It sounds paradoxical, but it does make sense when you think about it. We know about everything that is going on, and so many things happen, and we learn so many things, and yet we don't know the very basic things. Who you are, what you are, maybe your identity, where you're heading at, what's your goal, who do you want to be when you grow up. And people might say, yeah, that's not that relevant. Like, what is more important is we need to bring justice in the world. And I understand there is a lot of injustice, but at one point you get to the point where you get too much of everything. And if you don't fight that, if you don't fight that craziness, then you become crazy and you wouldn't even notice. Then when you see someone who doesn't know anything, you get really frustrated and angry because he's ignorant, uneducated. He's the one causing problems because he knows nothing. And that's the problem. Not the problem that the person doesn't know anything, but the problem that you have these feelings of anger, of contempt for something that actually makes sense. And I was isolated, just like many of you who live in the modern world, or basically any part of the world these days. So yeah, I was isolated for some time. I couldn't go out, or if I could, I couldn't basically talk to anyone. I could only go shopping, and at the beginning in the shops there was literally nothing to buy. People were panicking. You thought you're gonna starve to death. We've been all there, but it wasn't pleasant, not at all. Things got a bit better now, but what didn't get better is still how the media is portraying everything. And that's a normal thing. I mean, media needs to profit. And how they profit, they would profit only when they grab your interest. How they grab your interest is when they actually kind of exaggerate a bit with everything. Kind of make something that is gray really black, or something that is white really gray. so this is what's happening. It's been always like that, maybe not, but now the media became very aggressive with everything, and often people, get informed by the media, but they don't realize that actually what they debate these days is the color sky blue or sea blue, and it doesn't make sense. But this is what we fight for these days, and we became obsessed with it. Anyways, so I've been isolated for a few days, and it made me think again about the people living here and about me living in the modern world, full of internet and technologies and so on. And yeah, not only that I found peace here, but I also realized that during the pandemic that you actually don't need all of that. You can enjoy the peace, you can enjoy tranquility, you can enjoy the nearest park, you can enjoy the loneliness, and that's not a bad thing, because when you are isolated, then you start talking to yourself. And I know many people would say, oh, you're crazy, you're talking to yourself. Even now I'm doing it, but I know that I'm gonna share it and some of you might watch it. But yeah, I mean, we are social beings and we need to communicate with someone. Often you communicate with friends, sometimes you communicate with family, and sometimes when there is no one, then you at one point start to talk to yourself. And yeah, it sounds weird, like people would really think that you're crazy, but I don't mean like you're talking like crazy, but I just mean you have some random thoughts, maybe open debates, pointless debates where you imagine a person that you're debating and winning the arguments always. But yeah, when you debate people, then you start arguing with yourself because there's no one in your head, it's just you. And when you start debating with yourself, then you learn some new stuff about yourself. Maybe you're better at arguing, maybe you've been wrong somewhere, maybe sometimes you ask simple question, hey, am I right? Am I right about this? Or I've been lied to my whole life. And then you start questioning that. And then you talk to yourself and you get some conclusions. And what is important in all of that is that actually the more you're isolated and you talk to yourself, the more you learn about yourself. And if you're always surrounded by people and you always need to do things all the time, non-stop, then at one point you don't have time for yourself. And that's really sad, I would say, because you cannot forget who you are, your background, where you're heading at, what you want in life, some very basic but really important things. And this is where we are right now. We forgot all of it. We don't have any identity. We are really confused. Like, we think maybe we should be something else. And whatever we've been taught as children is all lie. I understand that, but you get confused. You also don't know where you're heading. Hey, I wanted to go in that direction, but the media says that's wrong now. Everyone in my family has been going this way since ever, but now it's wrong. And then you get confused because there is no alternative. You're the first generation going the opposite way. And then it's like, it's a challenge. What you want in life, that's also erased. Who you are, everything. We get to the point where we know nothing, but we are the ones who are informed about everything. And that doesn't make any sense, but this is how things are. So yeah, when you talk to yourself, you find things about yourself, and then you realize that actually what is important in life, when you don't know anything about the actual things happening, no protests, no movements, no global horrible diseases, when there is nothing like that, just nothing, just nature, just even you being in the room alone, when you talk to yourself, then you actually remind yourself what is important. You remember who you are, you know where you want to be, you know what's happiness. Happiness is very important, and we don't even know what's happening these days. But when you're here completely alone, then you start to realize all of these things, and then you look back to your life, to your modern lifestyle, and all of the information that you've been getting for so many years, and all of the things that has been happening, and people that have been telling you need to do more and more and more and more all the time. And then you start asking yourself, like, what was it all about? What's the point? Like, I accomplished nothing. Yes, I did so much, but none of the stuff that I did matter. It's all gone. It was there and it's not there anymore. It's just gone. And yesterday there was something else I was fighting for. Today there is a third thing. Tomorrow there will be a fourth thing. And I don't see any progress. I feel empty. I feel abandoned. I don't have a community. And I've been fighting for basically nothing. And this is where we are. And this is what we need to change. Because what we have in our modern society, our lifestyle, besides the jobs that are also pointless, but we need to do them, like everything we hear these days, most of the things are so irrelevant. They only teach you to be ready for the next end of the world. The fear is always there. If not, they're gonna remind you that you have to be scared, that everything in you is wrong, but they don't provide you any alternative. Even if they do, they might actually experiment, confusing you even more. Confusion is very important, because when a society doesn't know what they want to do, someone else is gonna come with the ideas and tell them what they have to do. And we have complete shift in our societies, and yet we don't know where we're going. And I would encourage people not to be isolated forever. That's wrong, but to take a break, go offline, step back from the world that we live in. Just isolate yourself at home, in your village, somewhere in the mountains or the nearest river, whatever, somewhere in nature, and just start observing. Observe yourself, observe the environment, and that's the environment. Just observe what you have, what was always there, and you are too blind to see it. Start observing and start asking questions. And ask yourself the very basic questions: who you are, what you are, where you're going, what you want to be, and what is happiness for you. And after some time, even 3 days, you wouldn't need more than that. After some time, you would just realize that everything that you have is a complete waste of your life. And it's better to realize this now, when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, instead of when you're in your 70s. And just stop, take a break, and give up on everything that they've been feeding you, and start enjoying. Because at the end, life is quite short. Life is actually not short, but it's gonna be short when you waste it on things that don't matter. So stop it and start thinking about it, and then you realize that we've been wrong about basically everything, and that maybe our ancestors and grandparents knew all of the answers, but we were just too blind and too deaf to hear them, thinking that they're old school. And yeah, just stop for a second, turn off your phone, and enjoy your life. And I think we are all gonna realize that we've been wrong about literally everything these days.